again, everyone. What did you all think? Like the program? Yeah. Well, please help me welcome our filmmakers now. With a round of applause. Right, I know that we've all met before, but since now you've seen the films, can each one of you go around, say your name, the title of your film, and then we'll go from there. Yeah. Alex.
All right, my name's Alex Zajicek. I was a co-director, and I shot Swimming the Rock. I grew up in Richmond and went to high school in Richmond, so I don't know, I'm local.
I'm Nick. I also co-directed Swimming the Rock, and I edited it. And I also went to high school out here.
Hey, I'm Rob. I was a cinematographer on From the Shadow of a Mountain, excuse me. And this is Alex.
Hello, I'm Alex. I didn't go to school here at all. I went to school in Australia, which couldn't be further from here.
He was the director on the film.
Yeah, ours was the running one, in case you need to remember.
I'm Andrew. I'm from Brooklyn. I directed Between Earth and Sky, which was the one about the climbing scientist, who's actually my aunt.
Thank you. Well, welcome. And I mean, all of the subjects and their stories and their voices are so meaningful and impactful. And I want to talk about that impact, what your film means to your community, to their subject, and just their overall story. And we'll start with you, Andrew, and just go back.
Yeah, so Nalini climbs all over the world. Her main sites are Olympia, Washington, and Monteverde, Costa Rica. And she studies trees and wants to share her love of trees with everyone. Like in the film, she asks, at a conference, like, imagine your favorite tree, what are the values and memories that makes that tree special? And I think that's her goal in life, to kind of bring her love of trees and curiosity to everybody. With the film, I wanted to sort of show her as this public figure that we all kind of look up to, as this amazing woman that's invented these things and done all these incredible stuff and been in all these, big media appearances, but then to make her feel human and to understand that, like, we all struggle, we all have to figure out and deal with, our own things and make sense of them. So to kind of humanize someone that you might otherwise just think of, like, I could never get up there, but, that she's a person just like us.
Thank you.
Wow, that was an impressive answer. Was the question about community?
Just the impact that this film brings to your subject or the community that you're trying to.
Yeah. Well, I think our film was kind of about contrast or juxtaposition, because, like, San Quentin is part of the Bay community. It's like an iconic site, and then it's so interesting that Mount Tam and all the the headlands is right there, right next to it, kind of above it. So I don't know, like, San Quentin is part of this community, whether or not people like it. So it's there, and then I think there's a really strong running community in the Bay. So it's interesting, the path that people take when they leave San Quentin, and how the running community embraced, particularly Mark Elbert, but other former inmates as they come out of prison.
Do you want to add anything? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, from a community perspective, like, our subject really was, like, drawn to running because of that. And it was, like, for him, like, a sort of, like, coping mechanism. And I think when he's in prison, he had friends, I think, that were outside of prison, but when he was in prison, he had, like, a community there. And, like, leaving, you're sort of searching for that, which I think running provided that, like, opportunity for him to get to know people.
Thanks. Nick?
Well, our subject is alone throughout the whole movie. He's at the most lowest point of his life. So he doesn't have much community because he lost his community, which is his family, his grandmother, who was his mother figure growing up. But I think the community that we see, or I see in it, is finding place within his surroundings, which is, being familiar to the locations that he shared with his grandmother, but post his grandmother, and finding new ways to explore it, which is open water swimming. And it's kind of how he finds his peace and overcomes grief and kind of becomes connected once again with his community and his grandmother and his family.
Beautiful.
I'm not sure what to add, but maybe I'll add that I guess part of why I was drawn to it was this was an extremely local guy to me. I actually found out he went to the same high school as me when he called me up and lived kind of down the block. I mean, that's unusual. Usually if I'm filming stuff, it's somebody I don't really know that lives somewhere further away, even if it's just San Francisco. But this was a guy that literally went to my high school, and nobody from my high school has anything to do with film or anything artistic at all. So it was kind of shocking to find somebody that was interested in making a movie.
Thank you. I want to open it up to all of you. If you have any questions, if you have anything you want to share, anything that made an impact on you on the films, you could all raise your hand. If no one raises their hand, I'm gonna call, but we'll start with you.
Well, okay, first of all, I loved all the films. They were great. But what did you struggle with while making the films? What was hard? Either technically or what did you struggle with?
What were the challenges technically?
How did you overcome that as well?
How did you overcome that? Let's start. Yeah, it seems like you want to say something, Alex. Or no?
I think an obvious challenge with ours was that Markel has spent 20 years in prison. And so the pace of life and communication particularly had just flown past him. He can't reply to text. I think he can now, but at the time you'd send him a text and 3 days later he'd be like, oh yeah, we can film Thursday. And you'd be like, that was yesterday. Yeah. It's so just technically chasing him down is really hard. And then there were technical challenges, a bunch of them. But I think that tracking him down and just nailing him down to times was really challenging. Yeah.
Okay. Andrew, you want to answer?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and there were a bunch of different challenges. One was kind of balancing the emotional sort of family film that I was really interested in with the ecological environmental film, which some of our funding wanted the film to be more about her work and, the sort of saving the environment aspect. And I really wanted to find a balance between them and find the connections between our personal health, our mental health, and our connection to nature. Technically, it was a challenge to get up in the tree, and it was really scary. And I was, yeah.
You had a cameraman up in...
That was me with a DSLR. Yeah, it was really scary. I don't know why they don't use 2 ropes. I feel like that would make so much sense. But that I asked, they said that's not the way that they do it. So that was very scary, and I accidentally got off on the wrong branch too early and was kind of stuck there for a while until they could figure out how to get me back on the rope. But it had a positive spin in that I got a shot that I really love of looking up at her through the leaves, and she's alone on the branch. So yeah, those are kind of the personal and the practical.
Thank you. Alex, Nick, challenges?
We have a less exciting editing challenge, but maybe I'll start with the slightly more interesting challenge of filming this guy swimming in the bay. I mean, I can swim, but if I was suddenly tossed off a boat with my camera in my hand in the middle of the water out there, I don't know, it'd be a little sketchy. But it was all good. It was not so scary in the end. And I never fell in the water, so it was all good. But I guess let's talk a little bit about kind of the editing of it, right? You want to go into that?
Yeah, I sat on this movie for 3 years. I didn't know what it was. When I first got the hard drive, because he did the shooting first and then handed it off to me and just said, make something with it. And I looked at it, and it was 8 days of shooting. And I saw an interview, and it was our subject, Josh, reading from a script he wrote, which is kind of unconventional. making a doc. And when I pieced it all together, his full script was 20 minutes long, and I was like, this is ridiculous. So, I just kind of tinkered around with it every year, and it wasn't until I really figured out what the story was, and I just streamlined everything, and it was just like, this man is at a low point, loses a family member, overcomes it by, jumping in the water and doing a huge feat. And also just saying that he's just like a regular guy, he's not an uber athlete. And I thought, that was interesting to tell as well.
Thank you.
He literally never really swam in his life before this. I think him having to go in a pool to get his physical therapy because of his PTSD causing him to trip and fall and hurt himself real bad. Anyway, that was him kind of learning how to swim in a pool, and just made him decide to try to do a really crazy swim with no real experience doing this.
Do you want to add anything?
Yeah,
George?
I just want to add something about challenging or seemingly challenging things, which are we've shot a handful of running stuff before. Obviously, chasing someone with a camera isn't the easiest thing. But for us, we decided to use Super 8 film, which the cameras are quite tiny and made of plastic usually, so they're light. But I would say basically you end up having it not be perfect, but in a way it sort of shows what running is more, where it's just shaky and kind of crazy. And I think oftentimes you're worrying about, you want this to be perfect, or setting up the framing right, or he got one of his favorite shots from something that wasn't perfect or a mistake or whatever. I think that's a good takeaway, is that you just don't have to worry about everything being perfectly ideal, and just sometimes that's more natural, I don't know.
Thanks for that question. Other questions? Yeah, Nathan.
If you could pair your short with any feature-length film, what would you pair it with?
If you could pair your film with any feature-length film out there.
There's another movie playing here called Naiad that we would like to pair with, so... They almost did it too. They teased us at the party. It's also about swimming, but it's a narrative. But it's by the guy, the two-person team that did Free Solo.
I don't know the answer right now. I don't know if Alex does, but I specifically told the person who asked not to ask hard questions, and this feels challenging.
My mind went to Shawshank Redemption because he escapes from prison and runs, but that's not a good answer. Chariots of Fire, don't they run in that? Jeez, these are all crap old movies. Don't watch them.
Mine are two docs I think that I was using as references when I was making the film, which was kind of Free Solo for the climbing, and then Minding the Gap for the personal. And I think because of where my heart is, Minding the Gap, the more personal exploration of kind of what gets passed down across generations, and kind of questioning if you can change and break cycles. That is kind of that's my answer.
Thank you.
That's a better answer than mine.
Oh, you had a great answer. Shawshank runs on TV every couple of weeks, so you could screen every couple of weeks on TV. Yeah, it's a classic.
Thanks for that question, Ethan. Yes?
How did you find your subject? So, either what inspired you to choose that person as your subject, or how did you, literally find them if they're outside of your social circle or something like that?
How did you find your subject? One, so go first. Andrew?
Yes. So Nalini being my aunt, I knew her, from birth or whatever, but I didn't know her well. It wasn't until COVID that I was thinking of writing a narrative scripted film about her story of fall and recovery. And I asked her to get on a Zoom and tell me about it. And in the process of having multiple interviews, it became much more clear that she, her real story, and we kind of got into much more of the family stuff, that was there was a documentary there. So that's when it happened. Yeah. COVID.
We both Rob and I run quite a lot, and there's quite a lot of group running and a running community in the Bay. And I just randomly ran with Markel one day. Got chatting with him, then just hit him up over Instagram. Yeah, I think that's a good takeaway though, is if you want to make a film about someone, you need to chase them down. Not literally, but do you know what I mean? They ignore you all the time, and you just have to keep being persistent.
Right. Thank you.
Our subject found us. He was in at San Pablo Community College. He was taking a film class and just decided that maybe I'll film myself doing the swim. And he didn't own any cameras, so he typed in online rent GoPro, and I showed up as somebody that had a GoPro that lived pretty close to him. So he reached out to me to try to rent the GoPro, and talking with me a little bit, he realized that I work on film stuff for a living, and so maybe it was a better idea for me to help him film the thing rather than him to try to rent my GoPro and somehow film himself while he's swimming. That would have been maybe it's better it turned out the way it did.
Thank you. Any other questions? We have time for one more, maybe two more. Any other questions? Yes. Do you plan to make more films with the people that you work with? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Nick and I work together all the time. This was the first time we really split the main creative thing. Usually one of us is it's our project and we call the other one to help out. And we, in fact, just snuck in an interview yesterday for maybe what the next person we're going to try and do a little film about.
Good luck.
Yeah,
Rob?
yeah. Rob and I hang out all the time, so we're kind of always on the hunt for a film. You look up.
You mean us or the subject? Yeah. Will we work together again, or will we shoot the person that was?
Well, I guess the people in.
All right.
Oh, both the subject. If you would work with the subject and then people, your crew.
Yeah. Rob and I would work again together. I don't know about Markel, and we're friends with Markel, and I've run with Markel since then. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what I would have to stumble across a different part of his story that would make sense for a film, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that the process of making my film, there was so much that could have been in it that I thought, oh, this could be feature length, this could be all sorts of things. And there's so many other perspectives in the family. But I am really happy with it's really hard, I think, to make something short. And that's the hardest thing is to let go of stuff and to focus it. So I think for now I'm satisfied with that being the definitive version of it, but maybe in the future there'll be more to it to make. So that's kind of a not sure answer. And the crew, yes, I'm staying with my DP, Derek, who lives in Santa Rosa. So I will work with him again. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Please let me a round of applause for them.
Thanks for being here.